I am so excited to introduce Nutrilite. This company has been around for 80 plus years. They were green before green was even a thing. They have the world's #1 kids and adult vitamins and kids and adult probiotics. This company uses the power of plants from seed to product to nourish and support you and your family's immune systems so you can have fun and enjoy living life together. Personal testimony. I had allergies for years and couldn't even be in the room with dust or cats. And the only thing I've changed since then were my vitamins and supplements. They truly cleaned out my system. And now I have 3 cats. Don't spend another penny on low quality vitamins that invest more in advertisement than the product. Arm yourself with Nutrilite vitamins and probiotics, and they have so many more things that will keep you and your family happy and healthy. Also, you can earn points towards cash with every purchase, and with purchases over $99, there's free shipping. Stop losing sleep and time with your family and get back to life with Nutrilite. The link is in the show notes. Welcome back to the Homeschool Advantage podcast. I'm your host, Bex Buzzy, and today's guest is Johanna. She is CEO of Stop, Read, Go. Stop, Read, Go is an early literacy company created with your littles in mind. It introduces the world of reading to babies, toddlers from ages 1 to 3, preschoolers from 3 to 5, in a way that is tangible, meaningful, and intuitive. Johanna left the IT world to stay home with her little boy when he was born. And it was this experience that made her realize the capability children have and the huge potential inside of them. She also realized to unlock this potential, we need to enable them, encourage them, and give them the tools they need to succeed. They have this built-in curiosity that is so special, and when we couple that with a loving and safe environment, that's all they need. The recipe is complete. Now Johanna wants to encourage other parents, caregivers, and educators to do the same. In this episode, we talk about how each child is unique, so their education should be just as unique and individual as them. Also, how her method and products take advantage of the child's natural abilities their brains come built with. Also, how Stop, Read, Go provides parents and caregivers with the tools and information to help their children read from an early age. Go grab your coffee, go grab your tea and a pen and paper, because you're not going to want to miss what Johanna has to say. Let's get into the podcast. Today we have Johanna, CEO of Stop, Read, and Go. Johanna, say hello to the guests and tell us, what is something you think most people just don't know about homeschooling?
Hi, Bex. Thank you for having me, first of all. Well, one of the things I think most people don't know is a little known secret in homeschooling, which is the fact that children can actually teach themselves. We don't necessarily need to be their one and only teacher, but they can actually do it themselves. And it actually is even better, because when their intrinsic motivation and their desire to learn is there, they learn better. We're so used to in the schools where you have 30 children just sitting quietly listening to one teacher at the front of the class, doing all the talking, all the teaching, that we forget that children can actually be teachers themselves, and they can teach us a lot of things. I cannot tell you how many things I've learned just from my own kid, all the things that he has discovered and learned about, and they get so excited just telling you, look at what I learned, and it is a better type of learning. The way I picture it, basically, when a child is forced, or you force information into a child's brain, true learning doesn't really happen that way. True learning happens when a child pulls that information into their brain by voluntarily, that's when true learning happens, because they want to learn about something. Instead of you forcing it into them, they want to learn, and that's when true learning happens. So yeah, in homeschooling, that's the power of homeschooling. They have the power to teach themselves to go at their own pace and follow their own interests.
I love that. You said intrinsic learning. I was just like, wow, that's so true. Like when they have that intrinsic learning, that desire within themselves, they are fueled and they actually can promote themselves and go forward and learn. In fact, I love when you said, like, because they are naturally curious, they do pull from information. Everything they see to them is like, it's just a wonderland. It's brand new. It's like, oh my gosh. Sometimes I actually miss all that wonder that they have, because I mean, you can remember when you were a kid, right? Like just everything was new. Like the smells were new and spring coming on and then winter coming. I grew up in the East Coast. So for me, it was winter, spring, summer, fall. And I just remember when spring would come, I could just smell the flowers and smell the newness, and summer would hit and it's hot and sticky, and just going to the beach and hanging out there with your friends and just tanning and just relaxing. It's like, go with your family. It's that. It is that. It really,
Yeah,
really
and
is.
and that's something. When I became a mom, that's when I started to realize that. I started to put myself in my kids' shoes. I started to see what they were seeing and looking at. I started to hear what he was hearing or touching. So I really put myself in his position, and I went down to his level, and I started learning and experiencing the world with him. And through his eyes, I got to see how he was seeing the world and what he was learning about and how he was learning, which is what really gave me insight into his brain. And I started to realize, you don't have to force kids to learn anything. They're naturally curious. They want to learn about the world. And all you have to do is walk along with them in that journey, in that learning journey.
Awesome. And your company is called Stop, Read, Go.
Yes.
So does that have to do with the understanding of stop, relax,
Yeah.
read, and then let's go? So is that actually, I heard you talking, I'm like, I wonder if that was how the name came together.
It has a sense of that, because we are so in our day-to-day lives, we're rushing through things. We have so many things in our schedule. We don't stop to observe what our children are looking at. And so when you start to look at and pay attention to what they're interested in, you can pause, take your time. And the stop, my logo is a stop sign. So the idea came from is because I was walking with my child, doing your usual walking around the neighborhood, and he was very curious about the stop sign. And he started to, and I was pointing at the word stop, and I kept saying stop, and teaching him what that meant. And so every time we will go through that stop sign, he will say stop. And so he learned to read the word stop from that. And so just taking that slow time to read and to point out those little details to slow down, it makes an impact into their learning.
So what is the focus of Stop, Read, and Go? What's your whole like vision and mission for your company in the
Right.
homeschooling
So,
community?
so Stop Read Go is an early literacy company that helps parents and caregivers to teach their children to read from an early age. So our focus is in children ages 0 to 5 in the early years, because that's when their brain is more open to language, to learning language, no matter what the language is, whether that's the first spoken language or a foreign language or sign language. But my focus is in the written language, the language that you actually read. And so I want to show parents how they can teach their children to read even from that early age, which is when their brains are the most absorbent of language, including the written language.
I agree. My mom actually taught me how to read by the time I was 2 years old. Like I
Oh,
was
wow.
reading.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
she was so good. So the first 5 years I remember people telling me, I don't remember. I remember people telling me that like I was not even walking and I was identifying letters and all these different things. So my mom really worked hard on me because by the time I started school, I spoke Spanish, English, and I was able to read and play a little bit of music and sing. For those first 5 years, she really poured a lot into me. And I'm just so thankful for her because I really do believe she set me up for the success I did have. When I got into the public school system, that's actually where things began to kind of like literally fall apart. Like it actually fell apart pretty fast. Right within kindergarten and first grade, second and third, those are probably some of the most traumatic, I'm not going to lie, traumatic years of my life. And that's why I'm such a proponent for homeschool because, those years, I guarantee my mom would have been able to do a way better job. Like, I just know she would have. And she didn't have like a college degree or anything like that. But hands down, she would have, I mean, I would have been so much more excelled. And not because I'm genius or whatever that is.
Right,
It's
right.
because she was able to teach me. She started at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't look at
Which is
my age.
key.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, she didn't look at my age and say, "Oh, well, you're just too young, so I'm going to speak to you." I'm gonna do No, she was like, let's start teaching now. So,
Yeah.
and she did. So I have to admit, I thank her so much for that. So I love what you're doing and how you're supporting parents. So does your company teach parents how to teach their kids at this age?
Right, right. So we don't go directly to the child. We talk to the parents and their caregivers so that we give them techniques, and I develop that method that they can use at home with their children to teach them what to do and how to teach their child, as just incorporating it into their daily lives and routines. It's not like a separate type of curriculum that you have to set a time aside, but it's more of a daily activity
Organic.
that you can, yes, organic. It's basically the same way children learn to speak. They don't set aside some time to speak, you speak with them throughout the day doing everyday activities, and that's similar to the method I developed to incorporate reading into everyday activities, so it's more natural. And the daily repetition helps to really remember those words.
That's awesome. So what inspired you to do it? Because it's a lot of work. What
Mhm.
inspired you to do this?
So the inspiration is my own kid, like you. He learned to read when he was very young, at the age of 2, because of the method I developed. And he started by reading simple words, and then he quickly moved on to sentences, then paragraphs, then chapter books. And right now he's 6 and he's reading huge children's novels, which are like 200 plus pages, even one or two are like 500 pages long, all on his own. And it's not just about the reading that's impressive, is the information that he's gotten from everything that he has read. I could not have taught him everything that he knows because there was just no time for that. He actually taught himself all that information because he had that ability to read, which I gave to him. So, reading, just giving a child the gift of reading, is an amazing skill to give to your child. And the earlier you do it, the better, because the brain is the most open for it, but also you're giving them the world of information that reading makes accessible to them.
Yeah, and also it gives them all that vocabulary. It
Yeah.
helps them to be able to articulate, helps them to be
Mhm.
able to convey their thoughts and speak with other people and to be able to just communicate the way they
Adult
want.
level.
Yeah,
Like you can tell, they can speak at an adult level with sophisticated vocabulary that they get from books. Like I say, he speaks like a book.
I love it. And
Yeah.
that's so important because, kids have a lot of emotions. And a lot of times with parents, they teach their kids when they're nonverbal, they teach them sign language so that they can actually communicate some
Right.
things. But
Right, that's helpful too because it avoids so many frustrations of lack of communication. And reading also it's in that same ballpark as sign language, where even before they're verbal, they can understand and see those words and understand what they mean.
yeah,
So
and
yeah,
how
they're very
frustrating.
helpful.
Yeah, and how frustrating is that to be a little kid trying to communicate your information and there's no vocabulary, there's no words, there's nothing you can do. You're just feeling this stuff. And the fact that you're giving, like you said, it is a gift of reading. It is a gift because now I have teenagers in my classroom that can't articulate themselves for nothing. They cannot articulate their thoughts. They can't describe how they're feeling. They don't have the vocabulary. They don't have the words to be able to share what they're feeling. I get answers like, well, it's like the thing. And I'm like, no, I don't know what thing you're talking about. Like, what thing are we talking about?
Right,
You
right.
know?
And that's another thing that my company is trying to accomplish to help parents, give them the tools and the resources they need to help in the process of teaching their children to read, but it's also trains them to be more descriptive with their language, not just say, give me that, but give me the cup or the plate or open the door. No, don't just say open it, but open the door and use the words so that they can hear the words, they can see the words because you're labeling things around the house, and they can understand the word because they can see the object when it's labeled. They can see the word, they can understand what it means, and they can hear what the word sounds like because you're reading it out loud to them. So that's the idea.
And all these methods probably touch all different types of learning styles and all different types of learning, even learning challenges, probably.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
awesome. Yeah. So, can you share with us any testimonies?
So the best testimony I have once again is my kid
Oh, yeah,
because
he's a great
saw
testimony.
it,
That's awesome.
I saw it with my own eyes and I can speak from my own experience. Believe me, to be honest with you, I cannot believe how far he went. At first, I just had this idea, hey, I can see how my own kid is learning to speak these different words. I can see he's learning from me because he has heard me say these words before in the past. And so I wonder, what if he could also see the words at the same time?
Wow.
Like if I labeled the table, and every time we walked or used the table and he will see the word table and I will read it to him, I wonder if he could also learn to recognize the word table just the way he recognizes it when he hears the word table. And
Wow.
so that's how it started. And I've been trying to help other parents ever since to teach them, hey, you can do this too.
I love it. So, where can parents connect with you and get your resources?
Yeah, so they can visit my website, stopreadgo.com. And there are lots of information in there, and there is information about the method. There are some products that I designed that are specifically designed to help you teach your child to read, make it easier to teach, and also easier and fun to learn. So there are a lot of vocabulary boxes, just like we were talking about, to teach them and expand their vocabulary. And there are things like labeled utensils and labels to label your whole house, and that you can get from my website, stopreadgo.com, that really makes the teaching process easier on both the homeschool parent and the child.
That is great. Jonah, as we're wrapping up, what is one big takeaway you want parents to walk away with from our conversation today?
So I will say to trust your child as their own teacher, to let them lead the way, to trust them that if they're interested and curious in something, that they will go and search for that information, and that you can be there as a guide and you can be there to learn alongside with them, and that they are learning machines. And as long as you give them the quality time and spend time with them, they can learn from you, they can learn from their environment.
I love it. Thank you so much, Johanna, for coming on today and just sharing all of your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And your awesome testimony. I mean, that is really beautiful. I mean, it just goes to show what can happen if you just start young, little by little.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
All right. Well, have a great one. Thank you for being on today.
Thank you so much.
If you love the conversations we're having here on the Homeschool Advantage podcast, follow or subscribe our podcast to stay in the loop and never miss this amazing content. And please highly consider taking a minute to leave a positive rating and review to help others like you discover this show. See you next time.